Born in London in 1660, Daniel Defoe came from a family of successful nonconformists. His father had been a butcher, and Daniel made a living trading in wool, wine, and hosiery. He was also outspoken and active in social and political issues of the times, and was not afraid to dissent against the majority. Defoe fared well when William II was on the throne. He was a favourite of the king, and he became more daring in his political exploits and his writings. Things took a drastic turn for the worst for him when William died in 1702 and Queen Anne ascended to the throne. She would simply not tolerate dissenters or nonconformists. This was the same year that Defoe's pamphlet, The Shortest Way with Dissenters or Proposals for the Establishment of the Church, was released. It was written in response to the Anglican Tories passing the Act Preventing Occasional Conformity, which in a nutshell forced everyone holding public office to practice Anglican worship. Before, they'd simply shown up and taken communion to fulfill their legal obligation, but really hadn't bothered with the Church of England beyond that. Imitating the style of sermon of fanatical Anglican Tories, Defoe anonymously suggested in his pamphlet that enforcing the law would be too time-consuming, and that it would be far more efficient to simply execute any dissenters and just be done with it. It read, "'Tis vain to trifle in this matter, the light, foolish handling of them by prison, fines, etc. 'Tis to their glory and advantage, if the gallows instead of the prison, and the galleys instead of the fine, were the reward of going to their places of worship, there would not be so many sufferers. The spirit of martyrdom is over." The problem was he imitated the style too perfectly, and the irony was lost on the many more radical Anglicans who assumed one of their ranks wrote the pamphlet, and they began speaking out in favour of execution as a punishment for dissension. There were many dissenters already holding public office who were understandably alarmed by this extreme stance and began very ostentatiously attending Anglican services in the morning while slipping out quietly to dissenter worship later in the afternoon. Defoe wryly referred to these individuals as playing bo-peep with God Almighty. Eventually, his printer was forced to rat him out as the author of the failed satirical pamphlet, and he was tried at the Old Bailey and sentenced to a large fine, jail time until he could pay off the large fine, and 3 excruciating days in the pillory, starting on July 31st, 1703. You may think that that's not such a bad deal given the times, but depending on what the crowds decided to do with you while you were locked up and at their disposal, the pillory could be a death sentence, or at least potentially leave you permanently maimed. If you were lucky, it was just extremely unpleasant. Then there was the fact that Defoe didn't have the money to pay the fine, meaning he effectively had a life sentence in prison unless someone bailed him out. While waiting for his punishment, Defoe composed a poem about his upcoming ordeal entitled Hymn to the Pillory that, legend probably falsely has it, inspired such sympathy among Londoners that passers-by threw flowers at Defoe instead of less desirable objects while he did his time in the pillory. Whatever the case, he seems to have emerged from the pillory with body still intact and ears unnailed to the wood, as sometimes would happen. Unfortunately, he didn't have the money to pay off his debt, and instead he spent the next few months in Newgate Prison until Robert Harley, the first Earl of Oxford, and Earl Mortimer bailed him out and paid off many of Defoe's other outstanding debts in exchange for Defoe's services as a political writer, read propagandist, among other things. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you actually find out about when we put out new videos. And as always, thank you for watching.